But I want to talk now to Jonathan Davis, who's an economist and a wealth manager, and he's on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Jonathan.
Hello, Robert.
Right then, I don't know if you heard the discussion earlier, but we've been talking about the story that's been all over the media recently about foreign investors, particularly from the Far East, although I don't want to lay the blame at any one particular set of people, buying properties in London, not to live in them, or not even sometimes to ever visit them or use them or let anybody else live in them, just as a kind of an investment that will go up in value. Is this happening, and why, do you think?
There's no doubt that the ultra-rich from all around the world, Russia, you mentioned the Far East, China, you're absolutely correct. Indeed, when their countries are in either or both political or economic trouble, then the first port of call is to take cash out of those countries and put it into assets in politically stable areas where, in theory, they hope that the money will stay stable and they can get it back out once things calm down where they are. And there's no doubt in many countries in the world there is both political and economic strife. You say that they buy it as an investment in London. I would say after the crash in 2008, that was an investment, but buying in the last year, well, I think if they think they're going to make money out of it, well, good luck to them. I would suggest we must be pretty close to the peak of all peaks after 50 years of rises. So do you think that we're likely to see a drop in prices, that all the foreign money that's been ploughed into, particularly into inner London, is going to be pulled out at some point and then prices will plummet? In answer to your question, I think that's reasonable to expect at some point because, as I said, they take the money out when there's political and economic strife, but once things calm down, or indeed once things collapse and they realize that they can buy locally at, shall we say, 10 pence in the pound, and actually that's how far things can go, then of course they'd be making a smart move to then take the money out of, for example, here we're talking about London property, although they've got other assets around the world, and put it back into their home country and buy very, very cheaply. And that's what smart money, big money, ultra-rich people do. They move money around to suit their personal well-being and their objectives, and it's entirely sensible and rational.
Yeah, but is it desirable for the people who live in this city?
Well, of course, not that many folk live in our London.
Yes, they do. I mean, London overall has a population of about 8.5 million, of which at least 1.5 million of those must live in the inner London areas.
Well, maybe if we define what we're talking about here, I'm talking about the ultra-rich.
Yeah, and
Knightsbridge.
Yeah, sure. But there isn't just Knightsbridge. Something like 50% of the properties being built currently are around the East End, around Old Street, around those kind of areas, are being bought by foreign investors, not to live in, but just to invest in. The same's true of the new areas of King's Cross. The same's true
and
Paddington Basin.
Marketed. The developers and the agents are marketing them overseas because the prices are absolutely ridiculous, and most nationals in the UK can't afford to buy those properties. So they're marketing them as investment properties. As I say, whether or not they ultimately prove to be a sound investment is yet to be seen.
So is there anything we should do about this, and is there anything we can do about this?
There is a load of things we can do about it. I think, yes, there is something we should do about it. I think the main problem that I see is that property is, of course, seen as a store of wealth because it has performed remarkably well in the last 50 years. One of the reasons why it's been a store of wealth is because it's basically untaxed. Think about that. Even local folk who 30 years ago bought a £200,000 house, It's now £2 or £3 million. They've made £2 or £3 million tax-free gains for doing nothing. Whether it's foreigners or locals, I think that's a dreadful state of affair, that folk can make fortunes by doing nothing, tax-free. So, I say, you just said before I came on, I think, yes, property should be taxed. The problem is we tax wealth generation, we tax income, and we tax corporate profits and personal incomes. We don't tax property. I think the main problem in our society is exactly that. If we reduce the tax on wealth generation and increase the tax on capital, I think would be a far more productive and equal society.
But I guess what you did say, I mean, we're going to have to end soon, but I guess one of the ripostes to what you just said there is that many of those people who bought those properties 20 years ago, ordinary, decent working people, didn't buy it to make lots of money. They've made money in terms of the property, but only if they sell it. They're still earning what they were earning. They're ordinary people just living in properties that are worth a lot of money. So to realise any money, they've got to sell it and go and live in Hastings or somewhere.
Absolutely, and many will.
But many won't. Many want to live here. It's for me, the whole issue about this is that a city is a place to live.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It shouldn't be a place where just by being makes you money. That's inappropriate and unequal in society. And I just find it astonishing that people don't get that obvious idea. It shouldn't be. You should be able to live somewhere and just make money. That's inappropriate. It creates an unequal society, obviously.
Jonathan, it's a fascinating subject, and I'm sure we can talk about this all day. And in some senses, we will.